Welcome back, College Baseball Central fans. We're back for another preseason preview. First one of season 3. Welcome back, fellas. I'm joined today by Noah Darling and Jake McKeever. Boys, we got the Big 12 preview today. Noah, how are we doing?
It's good to be back, Mark. I can feel it in my toes. College baseball's almost here. Normally that's frostbite, but today it's a little warmer here in Omaha. But I'm glad I didn't get the memo on the bright orange. I
Yeah, you
didn't.
need to wear the third shade of orange. Where's your Oklahoma State orange for us here?
I know there's a lot of realignment going on.
Ouch.
I didn't know Tennessee was in the Big 12, Jake.
I wanted to remain unbiased. I wanted to pick a team that we're not going to be talking about today.
I just wore plain orange.
Tony Vitello played in the Big 12. That's what you were going for.
That's
yeah,
fair.
he did technically.
This is fair. This is
Not
fair.
technically, he did.
Jake, how we doing, man? You ready for this preview show?
I'm excited, man. There's so many new teams to the Big 12. I feel like it's, finally going to be a half respectable baseball conference for a year, and then next year it'll be back down to the abyss.
Fair.
Okay.
Unless they add Oregon State and Washington State and add real baseball teams into this conference again, but who knows? I don't think that's happening. I think that they're going to be.
I just want to say on record that I'm not going to deal with Jake's little digs at the Big 12. It's disgusting. He's a Texas A&M guy who didn't do anything in the Big 12 and still really isn't doing anything in the SEC. I won't deal with it. I'm just going to go ahead and put a kibosh on that now. Thank you, Mark.
It's okay, Noah. Your baseball team's undefeated, so
Again,
Never lost.
they never lose.
They've lost. They've lost before, but not since I won.
Not since 2001 as the Iowa State lost. Well, we're going to get the show started here. So we rank all the teams here. So those of you who have not watched one of our preview shows, we start with 13, and we're going to go down all the way to 1 here for the Big 12 since there's 13 teams now. Then we're going to talk about the player of the year, the pitcher of the year, the coach of the year, and the newcomer of the year. And then we're going to direct some individual questions about these teams here to get us going. But we're going to start off with number 13, Cincinnati. Noah, this is your start here. Tell us a little bit about the Cincinnati Ball Club.
Yeah, it's a team that even struggled in the American last year, so we aren't expecting big things as they move to a power conference now, whether Jake wants to call it that or not. New head coach Jordan Bischel is coming out there for Cincinnati. It's going to be a tough turnaround for him. Nice talent coming back in Tommy O'Connor and Josh Cross, and then also Carrington Cross. Those last names are spelled differently. They are not related. But it's going to be a tough year up in Cincinnati. That's a school that kind of got here in the Big 12 via their football success, which isn't even happening this year. It's going to be tough sledding for that baseball club, unfortunately, whether the other 12 teams would admit that or not.
This is going to be a tough year for Cincy. They don't quite match up with the rest of this conference as far as baseball goes. They do have, like you said, O'Connor, who's coming back. I think he could be a really big bat for Cincy this year. He could put up some numbers. The two Crosses are going to have to give him a little bit of backup. K Cross and C Cross are going to have to help him out a little bit. On the pitching side, Tommy Boba, he had 12 starts last year. He wasn't electric, over 6 ERA. He's going to have to be better if this team wants to compete. He's going to have to be a Friday night guy for this team. I just don't see it happening here. So much to do about nothing here with Cincy. We're going to move on to our next one, I believe.
Well, Noah, we do need to give a new crown to Cincinnati as they have the ugliest uniforms in the Big 12 now. They stole that title from West Virginia.
Well,
The Under Armour gods are not doing Cincinnati a favor, so hopefully their new coach can kind of get rid of some of just the ugly piping that I saw last year when they played in Houston.
If West Virginia stole it, who stole it from Baylor?
Who took it from Baylor? That was going to be my question. Nobody's robbing Baylor of that trophy. Moving on to our number 12 team here, we've got BYU. BYU, they lost about 50 home runs in production. Jake, why don't you tell us a little bit about this BYU club here? I got BYU. I'm on BYU. That's all me. I got BYU this year. BYU lost 50 home runs, right? So they are missing a lot of offense. Cooper Vest is coming back, though. He's got 359 and 8 home runs last year. Luke Anderson, 6 home runs. He's going to try to get a little bit more power from his sophomore season. They don't have a lot on the offense, so it's going to be really tough in this conference to be able to produce. And then a ballpark that's sitting at almost 4,000 feet, you'd think that they would be able to hit a ball a lot further. They don't have a lot of pop this year. But they do have some pitchers returning. Mason Olson and Bryce Robinson both threw 80-plus innings last year. It's a good commodity to kind of come back. I don't think this team has anything, though, that's going to add to the Big 12. I think that Cincy and BYU are both just coming in just to throw some cannon fodder at some of these better teams, and I don't see a lot happening here. You guys have anything to add? Noah, anything to add on BYU?
Just what a stadium, Mark. One of the best stadiums
Gorgeous.
in the country.
It's picturesque. It's great.
Possibly the best addition of realignment for the Big 12 is BYU's baseball stadium. Hopefully the team catches up someday, but right now the stadium is really, really magnificent. If it was just a little bit of a quicker trip, I would definitely try and make it out there. Mark, I challenge you to make that trip.
It's just not that far from me. I think I have direct flights from Redmond down there from Alaska, so I might have to take
Speaking of that, I think they're going to upset somebody, kind of how Tech used to be in football, where someone's going to have to go out into the abyss of Provo, be away from everybody. Weather's probably going to be bad, and I think that they play spoiler with somebody. I don't know who it's going to be, and I don't really know if they have the talent to compete. But, I mean, playing in Utah in March is not something that a lot of these Texas teams are going to be accustomed to doing.
They have the pitching right, so if it stays cold weather, like you said, early in the season, I think they could snack up on somebody. I don't think they're sneaking up on anybody though. I think they're done early in this season, just like Cincinnati's going to be done early in this season. Baylor, number 11. They get in because two teams join the league. Otherwise, they'd probably be at the bottom of our list, right, Jake?
Yeah, and I think that they're going to have to play spoiler again, and we're going to have to manage expectations with this Baylor Bears team. They did take a series from OU last year, so, I mean, they have the talent there, but, I mean, it's just crazy when you look up and down this Baylor roster that they have to compete with the Techs, the TCUs, and the Texases because there is just such a big gap. From the pitching side, they got Jared Matheson, who's ready for his 4th year under the coach, followed him over from McLennan. They're going to have to lean a ton on him. Tyreek Kemp from Western Oklahoma Community College is going to be a big transfer for them. Hit nearly 400 in the JUCO ranks. Then Enzo, and I know I'm going to butcher it, Apodaca from Gonzaga was a freshman All-American back in 2022. Hopefully he can hopefully he can kind of, regain some of that magic because the Bears are really going to need him. But again, they play the schedule is kind of an easy slate for them, but again, they are the reason that some of these schedules are easy. So Baylor's going to have to go and really kind of exceed expectations here.
Yeah, I'll be surprised if this team wins, even 9 Big 12 games. It's going to be a hard sled for them to go through this conference and even attack any of these teams. Maybe they beat up on some of the new teams. I don't see them beating anybody in state this year, so it's just going to be tough sledding for this Baylor team. Apodaca is a great ad. I think that he could be electric. He was great at Gonzaga his first year there and then kind of fell off, so this will be a good new home for him. I'm hoping that it works out. Noah, anything to add on Baylor?
Just what we were talking about before with the uniforms, really. But then also, I'm a believer in Mitch Thompson. I just think it's going to take a while at Baylor because they are really just not having a good time right now and have really been struggling the last couple of years. They've had some MLB talent come through there with Shea Langoliers and some other guys like that. But it's tough sledding right now in Waco, which as an Iowa State fan, I'm okay with.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Moving on to another team that has had some tough sledding, mostly because they've been picked apart by some of these bigger teams and taken some of their transfer players. Kansas, number 10. We have them here set at number 10. This is a team that I feel like could be 13 or they could jump up to 6, but this is not a team that's going to compete for the title. Noah, what do you like about this Kansas team?
Well, the Kansas staff told us that they're big fans of the depth that they have on the mound now, and I think a big part of that is Dominic Vagley coming through. He's a freshman, big arm. He had the opportunity to go pro. He was drafted kind of late by the Diamondbacks. He was the only D-back draft pick that did not sign with Arizona. He's going to be big time for him. He's a freshman. Don't really know how they're going to use him out of the year, but later on I expect him to be starting, and it's going to be a name that people who are fans of these teams who are trying to get to the NCAA tournament will be saying, who is this Dominic guy, and why is he costing us the opportunity to either sneak in or maybe host? This is a Kansas team last year that took a series from West Virginia before it was cool, before West Virginia was falling apart. So they have that ability to pick teams apart. And I'm a big fan of Dan Fitzgerald. I don't know if this is going to be the year where they get in that mix of the top 6 or 7, but they're going to be a stingy team like we saw shades of last year. But this year I expect them to take a few series that we don't expect them to.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Shojinaga, Cody. That kid can rake from Hawaii. He has a real talent there. Coming off a freshman campaign where he was straight fire. Chase Johns also 10 home runs, 314. I think that they are going to get a little mix of offense, but they're going to have a lot of pitching. I think that this is a team that you're going to see holding teams down to 3-4 runs in that Big 12 conference, which is really tough to do. Jake, anything to add on this Kansas ball club?
I think this is the first year we've been doing this preview show where I actually kind of feel like Kansas can kind of be something, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how their expectations. But again, I feel like they're a lot better than the squad we saw in 2023, and I think that they have the talent to kind of be in, that best of the rest Big 12 conversation.
I agree. I think that they do compete this year. I do like what this Kansas ball club is doing, but there's a lot of stuff. There's a big road ahead of them, right? There's a lot of obstacles ahead of them that are really good. If they can pitch like we believe that they can compete for that, top 6, 7 spots in there, and maybe give some people some trouble, like Noah said, down in the tournament, and maybe hold some people out of making the big tournament. All right, we're going to move on to number 9. I have UCF. I'm going to tell you guys, I love UCF. I was really excited when I took this one. I was like, I'm taking UCF. Catcher Andrew Sunbeam is a straight-up stud, 6'5", 210 pounds. He hit .340, had 16 bombs last year. They have a lot of offense. Junior infielder Lex Bodicker had 16 home runs a season ago. He'll just look to be more consistent with his batting average. Starting pitcher returning Dom Stagliano. Really a lot of innings. He wasn't exactly electric, but a lot of innings, a lot of experience coming back. It's huge. They've got some good players coming in. Also, new start for Karsten Finvold, who transferred from Florida. And as you guys remember, the 22 Gainesville Regional, he was an all-regional pick because he threw 9 scoreless innings. This guy could be what this UCF team needs to be really, really good this year in 2024, moving to this new conference. I expect to see a significant amount of innings coming from Karsten Finvold. Jake, you got anything to add on this UCF ball club?
I mean, their 2023 season, I'm sure they're looking forward to New Year's Eve and turning the page because, I mean, they just had a nightmare scenario after the whole cheating scandal with the bats, getting their coach fired. I mean, they went and took a series from, I think it was Clemson. Mm-hmm. So they had the talent to be there, and it seemed like it all just kind of unraveled. And, baseball is such a streaky game, and we saw it with TCU, and UCF's kind of the inverse of that. So it wouldn't shock me to see them kind of move up and be one of the best of these newcomer teams.
I agree. No, you got anything to add on this UCF ball club?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that series against Clemson that we saw them win that one, and then they stormed the football field afterwards. So we've seen UCF compete with the best of them, but then we've also seen them struggle in the American, just like we saw with Cincinnati. So I think it's going to be a year of inconsistency from UCF, but I know you guys are pretty high on the Knights. Or do they even wear the alternate uniforms with the astronauts in the baseball? I don't like.
They should.
If you're listening, UCF, wear the uniforms because I don't know if you do.
Does John Reese Plumlee have any eligibility left? I feel like he's been in college since I was in college.
I'm not sure on that one. I will say one more note that I want to add about this UCF ball club. Freshman pitcher Josh Fernald, he's a dude coming in. I really want to see what they do. I don't know if they're going to use him early because I'm worried about his arm strength and all that stuff. They always try to work these guys in bullpens first before they put them straight on the starting mound. But we'll see. Josh Fernald, 9-0 as a freshman or as a senior in high school and had a .56 ERA. So, dude's got electric stuff. Moving on to number 8, Jake, you get Houston as the Texas guy, our local Texas guy currently since Alex is out. You are our Texas guru. You've gone and seen Houston play a few times last year in 2023. What do you like about this Houston ball club?
I really like how they kind of mortgaged their entire future to kind of join the Big 12. I mean, they really spent basically the last 5 years, and Tillman Fertitta donated a lot of money for them to get there. So I'm excited to see how this Houston team kind of tackles the Big 12 because baseball is one of their signature sports that they really get good at recruiting. Justin Murray's back for one last ride, and Anthony Tillamero behind the plate is going to provide a familiar face. But I think my favorite thing about watching Houston is how they're going to manage this pitching staff. I mean, they had 3 or 4 guys that would play in the field, come in and pitch an inning, and then go back out in the field. But I think that the Houston slate is one of the toughest in the conference. They play Kansas State, Texas Tech, Texas, TCU, all in back-to-back weeks, as well as they kind of drew that March BYU trip where it's going to be snowing for them. So I think that they're going to be a scrappy team, that they're not really going to have the talent of some of these teams, but you're going to see their name up against the top of the list, and they'll be in a lot of the series that they play.
That's fair. In our poll, UCF and Houston were very tight for that 8-9 spot where they're going to switch back and forth here. I think that both those clubs will be inconsistent, right? I don't know which one's going to show up and play better in specific weekends, but I think that both those teams are just going to be the inconsistency, and being the first time in this conference is going to be the part that's tough for them. Noah, you got anything to add on this Houston ball club?
Just what we saw last year, again, with those other teams struggling in the AAC, I don't think is going to translate too well to the Big 12. It felt like Houston had an opportunity to always catch up to even an ECU at certain points, and then at other times they just look like a lost ball club out there. So I think it'll be another tough transition for them. This is a basketball school, very, very good basketball school. Maybe Kelvin Sampson can come over and help out the baseball team.
This is a basketball school. Let's be real. Baseball's going to be tough for them this year, but you never know. There's a lot of talent in Texas. They could bring in some dudes. You just never know coming down the stretch here. But this is not the year, I think, that we see Houston break out into this conference here. Noah, number 7 team, much maligned. That these fans don't really love me because I talked so much trash about them last year. I was right, by the way. This team's not very good last year. Number 7, Oklahoma. Tell us a little bit about this ball club and what they need to do to turn their season this year.
Well, we heard it from Skip Johnson himself. This is a program built on a culture. They have that wagon wheel of culture. It was all he talked about in Omaha. And then they kind of fell apart a little bit last year. So I'm anxious to see how this team rebuilds. I'm a big, big fan of John Spikerman, who feels like he's been at Oklahoma forever now because he was so good as a freshman. He's so fast in those base paths. He's kind of must-watch TV, but you kind of forget about him on an Oklahoma team that struggled last year. It's kind of unfortunate. Kendall Pennis also back. Jack Nicklaus also back, or not Jack.
Nicklaus.
Jackson, of course, yes. Not the golfer. But it's going to be an exciting time for Skip Johnson to kind of address in this almost a rebuilding time where you still have a little bit of those pieces who played for a national championship, whereas now you're heading into the big bad SEC next year. It's going to be a little bit of a magnifying glass kind of a year for Skip Johnson.
Yeah, when we talk about it, Skip Johnson is a pitching coach, right? Like that's where he grinded his gears, that's where he got his teeth cut. James Hitt is gonna have to be a dude. He's gonna have to be the ace of this ball club if they want to be elite. If they want a chance at winning this conference, they're gonna have to be better on the pitching side because that's really where they fell apart last year. Granted, they didn't hit very well either. Spikeman and Nicklaus, they both had down seasons. I expect to see both of them make huge leaps forward. Jake, do you have anything to add on this Oklahoma team? Because I know that there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like here. I mean, they did have series wins over Texas and TCU, but I mean, they coupled that in with losses to Kansas State and Baylor. But again, Easton Carmichael was a Big 12 freshman first year. I mean, John Spikerman in May, I mean, his average was down in the 230s, and he ended up being Big 12 honorable mention. So if we see May John Spikerman, I think that Oklahoma is going to be a team to beat. And again, I remember we talked about it, how they were going to go down to Baylor, and it felt like that was going to be the get right series for them. And it just ended up being a nightmare. So I think the rebound is going to be the team for OU this year. That's going to be their theme, as again they try and move out of being 64 because I don't think the committee gives them that benefit of the doubt this year like they did last year.
They should not have last year. I was a very big proponent saying that they should not have been in the tournament at all last year. I feel like USC out here in the Pac-12 got completely screwed over in that whole bidding process because they're a much better team than Oklahoma was. However, Oklahoma does have dudes, right? They can compete. They are a team that can be exciting. John Spikerman has a gigantic swing for a non-gigantic human. I'm excited to see what this ball club does and then in the future here. Jake, Oklahoma State moving in at number 6 here. This feels a little down for this Oklahoma State ball club, but they lost a lot of talent.
I am very, very high on Oklahoma State. Rock Riggio graduated, and for better or for worse, this is going to be a different team in 2023. I think they're going to fly a lot more over the radar. I mean, you can say that they lost a lot. They get Nolan Schubart back. They get Carson Binge back. Lane's Forsyth transferring in from Mississippi State. I mean, they're going to have a ton of talent to compete, and I don't think that they're going to be out-talented. And again, they bring a major league approach with their staff. I mean, just the analytics that they bring, I think it kind of sets them apart. And I think that that's why this Oklahoma State team, I'm very, very high on. I mean, I have them as high as 4th in my picks.
My concern with Oklahoma State is leadership. Who's going to be the step-up leader? You know, they had Rock Riggio for so long. He was the guy that did it on the field, and he's the guy that was the emotional leader in that ball club. I don't know who's going to step up for this team, and that's where I really want to see who's moving up into that leadership role here for Oklahoma State before I move them out of my number 6 spot. Noah, what do you think about this Oklahoma State ball club at 6?
Well, like Jake said, Nolan Schubart is really one of the best players in America who almost got overlooked a little bit last year behind a guy like Rock Riggio, who we all kind of get the big star eyes emoji for whenever we watch him play. But then they're bringing in a guy that I really like named Brian Holiday. No relation. He's going to be on the mound. Very exciting kind of a player because I think that there's going to be a little bit of that Holiday juice going down that they have in Stillwater. And then you see a leader come in by the name of Lane Forsyth. You might remember him from Mississippi State. Certainly not somebody that you're going to rely on to go get you a hit every time he's at the plate, but he's somebody who has won a national championship, who can kind of provide that insight to a club that is on the younger side but still has some nice talented pieces.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I'm hoping, that Forsyth can be that guy for them because I feel like they need somebody to glue that team together because they have enough pieces to be an elite ball club, but I just don't know if they're going to be able to do that from as far as a mental standpoint and be able to hold themselves together. Maybe Forsyth is the answer. Maybe I'm overlooking him, saying that that's beyond it. So,
Mark, I just wanted to raise my hand, and I don't know how we can move on from Oklahoma State without mentioning Carson Benj. This is going to be a top 2 pick top 2 round pick in the draft. Excellent player for Oklahoma State. He's another guy that they're going to rely on. Got a very nice swing when he goes to the opposite field. It almost, I'm not breaking it out, but it almost looks like Griffey when he goes to the opposite field. Almost. I'm not saying it. I won't say it, but almost.
I'm not going to take this Griffey talk from you with anybody from Oklahoma State. I'm sorry, even Benj. I'm staying away from this. There's no Griffey. Griffey is Griffey. There's no one.
You're a Yankee fan, so Griffey doesn't want to hear from you.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. But I grew up here in the Pacific Northwest, and I got to go watch him play all the time, so I was very fortunate. All right, Texas Tech. Noah, tell us a little bit about this Texas Tech team, and then we're going to lean on our resident Texas folk, Jake, here after that.
Well, here are the things that the rest of us know about Texas Tech that our resident Texas folk do not know, or do know but don't have to say. Gavin Cash, and they can't win on the road. Those are the two things that when you're following Texas Tech, you have to be able to track this year. For whatever reason, every time they leave Lubbock, you can almost pencil in a series loss. Don't know what it is. And Gavin Cash is an outstanding player who I'm sure he's going to mention it because that's just the way Jake is. But Jake will go ahead and take credit for Gavin Cash's career momentarily. Jake, go ahead.
But before we kind of jump into that, I mean, where does Texas Tech go from here? That's really going to be the answer. I mean, yeah, they're a national power who's been to Omaha numerous times, but they lost Mason Molina. They lost their Friday night ace. I mean, that usually doesn't happen from teams kind of blue blood. So, I mean, Texas Tech's kind of in new waters there. And again, Gavin Cash is, I think, the best hitter in the Big 12. Led the league in home runs, RBIs, total bases. I mean, he was hitting 7th and 8th for Tech when we saw them against A&M in March, and he was up in the 4-hole for them. Kevin Bazell, I think, will need to be a leader again for this team. He kind of had some growing pains as a freshman with some of the errors. And look for a breakout candidate from Will Burns. I know he started a ton of games up the middle for him, really didn't hit the ball well, but I think Will Burns has the talent to kind of, break out for Texas Tech. Slate-wise, you mentioned it, Noah. How is Texas Tech going to handle not being the Abyss team? That's now BYU. This isn't really that tough of a road trip for these teams now, relatively speaking, when you look at BYU. They draw Kansas and Baylor, and then also they have that famous Big 12 bye to close the year where they'll be playing Arizona State and UNLV. So they kind of get a Big 12 bye there at the end before the tournament. So how they kind of manage the staff that, again, lost their Friday night ace will tell the tale of this Texas Tech team.
It's funny that you mentioned the tournament because I feel like this team is a team that could not make the tournament, right? They could be starting to lose that blue blood status here. They have not been great as of late. I would like to see more from them. If this team wants to retain its blue blood status, they're going to have to be in that talk for hosting, and I don't think that they're there this year. Now, a lot can happen in the season. Cash could, hit 25 home runs, and this team could be outstanding, and I could be dead wrong. I don't see them replacing Friday Night Starter. I don't see them replacing. They're missing a lot of pieces again, just like this Oklahoma State team. Why I have them so low. I actually had Texas Tech at 8 because I feel like this team might be missing too many pieces to be great. But I've been wrong many times, so I could be wrong once more here with this Texas Tech ball club. But they struggle so much on the road. I want to see them at least take some series. Like you said, Jake, their road series this year are not difficult. They need to go out and win at least 3 of those, right, and compete for that Big 12. But I don't know what's going to happen here with this one. Number 4, West Virginia. Noah, start us off with this West Virginia team. We all know their superstar, J.J. Weatherholt. Talk about this team.
Well, that's who we got. We got J.J. Weatherholt. But then when we asked this program in the offseason, what separates your team this year compared to last year, they said that it's their depth. They feel like it's the deepest team that they've had in their time at West Virginia, and that may be the case, but J.J. Weatherholt is an exceptional player that's going to have a chance to not only win Big 12 Player of the Year, but also win National Player of the Year. But looking at some of that depth, they bring in guys like Chase Meyer and Armani Guzman from the transfer portal, David Hageman, Logan Suave, Grant Hussey, Hayden Cooper. All these guys are going to help J.J. Weatherholt, but really you turn on West Virginia and you are going to see J.J. Weatherholt. He's an exceptional player. The question is, can they get over that hump? We saw them fall apart when you get in the grind of a season, when you kind of know that you're punching above your weight a little bit, eventually it comes crashing down a little bit. And how they respond to that adversity this year is really going to define how we view this West Virginia team that really is led by the legacy of J.J. Weatherholt. And we'll see it on display this year. And I can't wait. I love West Virginia, but I didn't like how they fell apart last year.
My big concern is, yes, they have depth. Do they have enough talent around J.J. Weatherholt to let him be that guy, right? Can teams pitch around J.J. Weatherholt because there's not much? A lot of that's going to fall on Grant Husey, right? He hit 14 home runs a year ago, but he was inconsistent with his batting average. He's going to have to be a lot better. We all know he can hit the ball 110 miles an hour. He's going to have to be more consistent for this team to be great. They are bringing in freshman Ryan Cooper, who's in the mid-90s. Good arm ahead of him. I just don't know how many innings he's going to get this year, but if he's a weekend starter, that gives them a little bit of electricity. I'm pretty excited for this West Virginia ball club, especially if Grant Husey, the first baseman, can really step up and add to those, maybe not even adding to the home run total, but be a little bit more consistent with putting the ball in play and not striking out so much. Jake, what did you see about this West Virginia ball club?
I mean, it really is hard to not talk about J.J. Weatherholt because you usually don't see like guys like this at West Virginia. But, this is a team that all they needed to do was win one game in Austin and they take the Big 12 crown. They ended up being co-Big 12 champs. And a lot of people kind of forget that just because, Texas went and just dominated that series. But, I think David Hageman is going to be another guy that they lean on. And again, West Virginia is going to be continue to build on what they had. 20 names returned from West Virginia. They're one of the older teams in the Big 12. They've been here. Hopefully that translates to better road trips. But again, I think West Virginia is going to be a team that's going to be very, very much in the mix, and they're not going to surprise people this year like they did last year.
Yep, the depth, that's their key to success, right? Just being able to have the next guy step up anything goes on and having some guys be able to really produce with the stick. Last year was J.J. Weatherholt. They're going to have to need more around him to protect his ability to be able to go up there and hit and swing away. Jake, Kansas State here at number 3. This might surprise people that are not Big 12 fans, but this team is really built to win right now. What do you like about this Kansas State ball club?
This one kind of caught me a little bit off guard too because I had them around the 6. But again, when you kind of did a deeper look and other people were ranking them high, they returned 20 letter winners from last year's season. They had their highest win total in 10 years. They advanced to the Big 12 tournament semifinals for the 3rd straight year. And Brady Day is kind of one of the best players no one's talking about. He hit 356 last year. He got really hot when they went on that Big 12 run. And again, they were kind of in the conversation. I know they had that late series loss to TCU, but that one really did kind of feel like an elimination game for the tournament. And Kansas State was on the wrong end of it. But again, they were in all those games against TCU. So again, building on that, Kalen Culpepper, fresh off his Team USA bid, he's going to be the leader for Kansas State. Had a 15-game hitting streak, and he's going to be drafted pretty high next year as well.
Kalen Culpepper is a dude. 10 bombs, 325, and he was just getting started when that started happening. Brady Day was also drafted in the 12th round last year. People don't remember that. That guy is a dude. He is a great infielder there for Kansas State. They have a lot of opportunities here to be excellent. No, I know that you are very close to this ball club. You like going out there and see this team. Tell us a little bit about this Kansas State team.
I have never been accused of being close to Kansas State in any regard. Possibly my least favorite football and basketball team. But this baseball team is exceptional. I don't know what it is about 2024, but I am falling in love with a lot of teams that I shouldn't like. We'll talk about Iowa in a few weeks. But Kansas State is a team that I really love. Of course, you talk about Culpepper, but then you have to talk about Tyson Neighbors as well, a Team USA guy, kind of used as a stopper last year. I think he's going to be starting this year. Really, really excited to see how they use him. He's a guy that'll blow you away. He throws 99. Excited to see him. I'm going to have to go down to Manhattan for sure. Hopefully I can see them play Kansas in a game that matters. If not, I'll check out one of their other home series. But Kansas State is a very exciting team for me. I know that we're going to talk about some of their guys later in terms of Coach of the Year, Mark. We might have to debate about that one. But I'm looking at Chuck Ingram for a Wichita State transfer coming in. It feels like Wichita State has transfers sprinkled in throughout this conference. He's going to be a big-time bat for Kansas State as they kind of figure out if they're going to be a real contender or just a contender in the Big 12. But I think that they have a massive chip on their shoulder after being left out of the NCAA tournament last year.
Yeah, I really want to see what they do with Tyson Neighbors. He is quite possibly was one of the best closers in the country last year. And I don't know if they're going to move into the weekend rotation or if he's going to continue that closing stopper role. He was really, really good last year as a closer role. So if they have enough arms, I know that they're going to move Ty Rule. He got a lot of starts last year. He's probably going to be their Friday night guy. Sophomore Mason Buss also will be in there out of the bullpen. They're going to have a lot of arms returning that they need to have be great, but Ty Rule is that guy that has to be a good Friday night starter if they don't move Tyson Neighbors to that role. If they let Tyson stay in the bullpen, then it's going to have to be Ty Rule's going to have to be that guy that's the Friday night starter. Jake, number 2, Texas. Texas has a lot to like this year. Tell us about this Texas ball club.
This almost feels like a low ranking for how I view this Texas team. I mean, they're one of the most talented rosters in
Number
all of the
2.
Big 12. I think they should be one, far and away one. I mean, they get Jared Thomas back, who really is kind of a throwback first baseman, almost like a Mark Kotze type that can really spray it all over the field. Really kind of a different mindset than how they were with Ivan Melendez, the Hispanic Titanic. And he's just done a great job kind of backfilling that. Maybe the most talented pitching staff in the country. I mean, LeBaron Johnson, that was a guy that I thought that they were going to lose to the draft. They get him back. I mean, down the stretch, he had just lights out stuff. Tanner Witt, how much are we going to see him? I know we saw him in very, very limited action, and his fastball velocity was definitely down. So how they kind of use him and which Tanner Witt we see. And lastly, David Shaw worked his way out of the bullpen and being in that weekend rotation by the end of the year, how they use him as well. And then lastly, who's kind of the unknown that breaks out for Texas this year? I mean, we've seen Peyton Powell, Mitch Daly, Murphy Staley. They just seem to be loaded with guys who you don't seem would be like in the starting lineup, but just, hit 350, 360 and forces, Coach Pierce to put them in the lineup. But again, I think that this is the year that Texas returns to Omaha, and it wouldn't surprise me to see them very, very deep in this tournament.
If you're talking about a guy you think could break out, I have Jared Thomas. I think that he's going to build off that fantastic freshman season coming back out this year. He could be that guy that steps up and is huge. Peyton Powell's a dude, right? 16 home runs, 340 average last year. Look for transfer right-handed pitcher Grant Fontenot. He's coming in from junior college. He was great in the junior college ranks. I'd like to see him really stepping into this role, possibly out of the bullpen, maybe being something that solidifies that middle innings for these guys. Texas is great this year. No, I know you've been shaking your head a little bit because you think the number 2 ranking might not be there. You're giving us a little bit of the head nod here. What's going on?
Yeah, there's no disrespect to Texas. Obviously, a great program built on pitching. Jack O'Dowd and Porter Brown as well are back for this Texas offense.
Wait, Porter Brown's back?
Yeah.
Was he like a 9th-year senior?
Yeah.
343, 12 homers,
TCU legend.
As Porter Brown is back.
But yeah, it's just funny that Jake says all these things about Texas out in the open, and behind closed doors he'll be like, "Oh, this team sucks," but then he'll come out and jinx them on air and be like, "Oh, look, I was right either way." So he plays both sides. It's unbelievable what we do with this Texas team. And he wore the Tennessee, but he thinks it's a Texas shirt. So it's all these angles that he plays that we do it all year long, and we're starting in December. I'm just excited to see it between now and June and see how bad it gets.
That's fair. It is definitely a horns up program this year. I think that this team is going to be really, really good and fun to watch. It's going to come down to pitching, right? So if Tanner Witt can be that guy, and they've got LeBaron Johnson Jr. already, that is a 1-2 punch that's going to be really tough to compete with as far as the Big 12 is concerned and into the tournament. Moving on to the number 1 team. They earned this by a lot of their play last year late. TCU is the number 1 team that we're looking at here. Noah, why don't you start us off with this TCU ball club? I know that they lost quite a bit of talent to the draft. What do you think about this TCU club?
At this point, I'm a big believer in what Kirk Saarloos is doing. He's rebuilding very, very quickly. Used the transfer portal to get one of the best players in the entire class, whatever you want to call that. Peyton Tolley is going to be great for this TCU club. And then I think bringing a guy back like Anthony Silva is just so big. He was a freshman last year. The way he developed throughout the year, he made some great plays in Omaha. He's one of my favorite players to watch. Kind of reminds me of the Jacob Gonzalez development that he has a little bit going on, who became a controversial player over time, but I'm a big believer in what Silva's doing. I'm excited to watch this TCU club. I think Klecker is going to be great again for TCU. This is going to be one of those where, while they are missing those key pieces, I think they have filled them in very nicely, and they're number 1 for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this transfer, Zach Morris is another arm you got to talk about that came from Arkansas. Is he going to be a big step up for them? Is he going to be a weekend rotation guy? He could be. He really has stuff that could be if he gets arm healthy. There's a lot to like there. Along with Anthony Silva, fellow catcher Carson, that guy had a fantastic freshman season. They've had a lot to build on here. Jake, when you look at this TCU club, we know they lost a lot. Do they have enough to be the number 1 team in the Big 12 and possibly get back to Omaha?
We do have to kind of talk about was last year kind of a fluke and they got lucky. I mean, a lot of stuff. I mean, they were 7-10 at one point in the Big 12 and looked dead to rights. I mean, granted, they figured it out and they had the talent to, but are they going to be the team that kind of figures it out earlier in the year and fades? But again, how can you not like this TCU team? I mean, they return Anthony Silva, probably the most athletic shortstop in the country. They return their Friday night guy, Cole Kleckler, who absolutely shoved in Omaha as the Friday night guy. And again, Curtis Byrne, Carson Bowen, I mean, those are two of the best tandem behind the plate where one of them hits, one of them fields. And again, that play that Carson Bowen made in Iowa State to send him to Omaha, I mean, they get that back. It's going to be exciting to see how this TCU team does. Because, again, them in Texas, they almost feel like they're a step above the rest of the Big 12.
It does. It feels like it's a two-horse race here for the title. I feel like everybody else is just kind of chasing those guys. I don't think that the rest of the conference has enough to chase them. It is really tough between Texas and TCU. And it could come down to coaching. It really could. Sarles is a great coach. I'm excited to see what he does with this ball club, all these transfers in. Like you guys mentioned, both of you guys did, the Cole Klecker. You guys know he threw 96.2 innings last year. He almost threw 100 innings last year as a freshman, which is just crazy in a sub-4 ERA. I'm hoping he doesn't go into the sophomore slump. There's a lot of guys on this team that were good freshmen last year. Let's hope that they don't drop down. But that's our ranking there. TCU gets number 1. We're going to start off with the conference pitcher of the year. And you know what? I'm gonna let you start, Noah, because I always feel like you get the bad end of this draw. So I'm gonna let you do conference pitcher of the year.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go with almost a little bit of an upset pick. I'm gonna go with Tyson Neighbors. Just the way that Kansas State may or may not use him is really exciting. And I think Kansas State is going to be one of those teams that they're going to rely on everybody to get it done, and he's going to be one of those guys that stands out. There are a lot of other great picks. I'm sure Jake will go with one of his Longhorns. Sorry, Jake. I didn't mean to. But I'm going to go with Neighbors just because I think the way that he can be used is very exciting. Almost to Kevin Kopp's last year. We'll see what they do this year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they use him, right? Because he was great as a closer. Does that translate over to being a starting pitcher? I don't know. I think that he could be the dude. If they give him the ball on Friday, it wouldn't surprise me, right? I'd be very excited for that coming down there. I'm going to go with a Texas guy, but I'm not going to go with LeBaron Johnson Jr. I'm going to go with Tanner Witt. If he is any shade of what he was as a freshman, this guy could lead this team and make Texas be a top 10 team in the country. He is a top 5 pitcher in the conference for sure, if not the country, when he's right. So we know the fastball's down. That might have just been some fall ball stuff in last year coming off that arm injury. Hopefully he's gotten right, he's gotten healthy, but I believe that Tanner Witt could be the surprise dark horse pick to be pitcher of the year because of his talent and his arm talent there. Apparently we lost Jake.
Yeah, Jake said he has some kind of audio issues. I guess the Texas fight song was blaring too loud on his end.
It was going too loud in his head. All right, we're going to move on then. We're going to go to the coach of the year. I know that there is some controversial picks here for this one. I know a lot of people would probably not go my direction, so I'm going to go first just to get it out of the way.
Okay.
Kansas State's Pete Hughes. If Kansas State competes for this championship again and they don't get into the tournament, it is a complete sham. Pete Hughes has built a winning ball club right now to win. Oh, Jake's back. Jake, let's get your pitcher before. I already picked Pete Hughes for coach of the year, but I'm going to get your pitcher.
LeBaron Johnson Jr. out of Texas. I mean, what we saw down the stretch from him at the end. I'm sure. Is that what you predicted, Noah?
Yeah, we 100% were like, he's going to pick LeBaron Johnson Jr. I took Tanner Witt, by the way, so.
I think that this is the third year in a row, too, I've taken a Texas pitcher because I took I really like LeBaron Johnson, though, down the stretch. I really think that they have one of the best pitching staffs, and he's the ace of that staff.
We'll see. I believe that it could be Tanner Witt. I'm really leaning on if he has any of his ability like he did freshman year, that guy could be the next stud. But I took Coach Pete Hughes, Kansas State. Like I said, if he can get there and get this team up into the top 3 again and have a chance of competing for the Big 12 championship, they'd better not hold them out of the tournament this year. Jake, I'm going to let you go next with your coach of the year.
I'm going to go way out of left field. Rich Wallace out of UCF. I think this really kind of feels like who's the best of the newcomers. And I think that UCF is going to be the best of the newcomers. Rich Wallace. I mean, there's a lot to like about this UCF team, as Mark kind of hinted at.
I love it. The thing is, yeah, I mean, maybe voters get bored of seeing the same two guys at the top of the list all the time. So maybe they're going to go reach out there and be like, hey, let's see who else had a great season that was not expected. I love it. Rich Wallace, big pick there. Noah, who are you?
You just gave it to me on a silver platter. You just said a guy that, is unexpected. He's not at the top of the list, but he had a great year. Dan Fitzgerald. I think Kansas starts taking some series from people. They keep producing those talents that go to other teams through the portal, but maybe they keep some of their own, and I think they start to build something real in Lawrence. So give me Dan Fitzgerald and get on now, because a year from now it's going to be crazy how much I'm talking about Dan Fitz.
People are probably going to be shocked that we didn't pick Pierce or Sarlus, the guys we want to be fun too. But I do believe that they're going to go a different direction this year. I think they're going to go with who did the most with what they have. And I like all three of those picks, but I like Pete Hughes the most, of course. Kansas State. Newcomer of the year. Noah, why don't you start us off here with the newcomer of the year?
I'm going to go with Peyton Tolley. I think that his addition to the Big 12 is going to be incredible. I think it's kind of nitpicky when you can kind of take an experience transfer like that to win that award, but unfortunately that's just the way it goes. Otherwise, I would go with my guy Dominic Vagley up at Kansas State, but Tolley is going to have a fantastic year for TCU. He's already having a great fall. Really, really excited to watch him in that kind of high major conference that he hasn't been in before.
I like it. Jake, where are you going here with your newcomer of the year?
Noah stole both of mine. So I know it's not going to be someone from Tech because they have no freshmen. But, yeah, I think Peyton Tolley, how they use him as both the pitcher and the hitter, seeing how that kind of plays out. But, again, I think it is kind of his race to lose. And it almost feels like cheating. Like we should have a freshman of the year as well as, a transfer of the year.
Yeah, because you know what? I'm going transfer play as well because I believe that experience is coming in the conference. Karsten Finvold from UCF. I think that with his ability and what he did at Florida in 2022, coming back a little bit healthier now, getting the opportunity possibly to be the weekend starter here for them. Karsten Finvold, UCF, is going to be my newcomer of the year in the Big 12. All right, boys, it's the big one. Jake, we're going to let you start with your player of the year for the conference.
I'm going to go Tyler Walford out of Oklahoma State. I'm going to go way, way out of left field. I know that that's probably a questionable pick, but again, he was the best hitter in the Big 12 down the stretch. I mean, he led Oklahoma State with a 386 batting average, had 7 home runs in Big 12 play, tallied 21 RBIs in league games, 17 multi-hit games, and 9 multi-RBI performances. He had a little bit of a growing pain out of JUCO kind of early in the season, so he flew under the radar. But again, I think he's going to be kind of a dark horse in this play of the year race.
I like it. I like where you're going with that one. He really could build off of what he did last season and be that guy for this team, for Oklahoma State. If Oklahoma State wants to compete, they need him. Noah, your player of the year.
Thank you, Jake, for letting me take him. I'm going to take Gavin Cash. I think if Texas Tech is going to win games, it's going to be because of Gavin, and kind of the definition of a most valuable player. His stats will rack up. They'll speak for themselves. And if Texas Tech is winning games, it's going to be hard to deny him that award. I was tempted to go Porter Brown. I'll admit it.
That's fair. There's a lot of good players in this conference, right? So I'm going to have an honorable mention before I say my pick here. Andrew Sunbeam, the catcher for UCF, could be a 20 home run guy in this conference. He could hit 350 and 20 home runs, and he looks the prototype catcher for the big league level at 6'5", 220 pounds. I don't think he's going to win it just because of the experience being at UCF. I think it's going to be hard for them. I'm going with Kalen Culpepper at K-State. With what he did this summer for Team USA and Baseball America and all the tournaments he played in, this guy is legitimate talent there at K-State. He could be a 20 home run guy. He could hit 360 this year. Look out for him. If K-State is competing for the title, this guy is going to have a chance at winning Player of the Year conference. All right, boys, we've gotten through a lot of the hard stuff. Now it's time for the directed questions that I know you guys love so much that I have for you guys every year. First off, we're going to start off with who's the dark horse. So to specify for our fans so that Jake doesn't pick a wrong dark horse like he does every single year for me, I am saying that you have to be in the polls between 5 and 13 in our poll to be allowed to be considered a dark horse. Jake, I'm going to let you start since you seem to lean on favorites that are not this category.
Yeah. I think it's got to be Texas. But in all seriousness, I'm going to go with a different orange team, Oklahoma State. I mean, Rock Riggio departs. I think everybody in the conference kind of thinks that this is going to be a down year for them. But again, I think that the dudes that they return, I think that they have the talent to kind of compete for the upper echelon of the Big 12 conference.
Yeah, I think that they're I think with what they lost, they're on the outside there, so they would definitely be a dark horse if they could come through and win this year. Noah, who is your Big 12 dark horse?
I just wanted to thank Jake for taking the 6th ranked team when we said he couldn't take the top 5. But my dark horse is going to be Kansas, just because I think that they are a team on the rise that people can easily overlook. They took a few games last year. Like I keep saying, I think they take some series this year. Eventually those rack up in the Big 12 when there are so many teams, especially these new ones. BYU, we're all saying that he's going to take one in March, apparently. So everybody's going to eat wins from each other. I think Kansas has a chance to slide up and benefit from that.
I'm going to take a team that is similarly ranked. So you took number 10, Kansas. I'm going to take number 9, UCF. I think that this team has the talent and the ability to beat anybody in this conference at any weekend. Now, whether they're going to do so, I don't know. But I believe that they have all the talent and the coaching to be able to win this conference if they somehow put it all together every single weekend. They're not going to. They're too inconsistent. But if I'm picking a dark horse that has all the talent, it's UCF for me. Noah, Battle of Kansas. Which Kansas team do you think comes out on top and why?
I think it's too hard to deny the Wildcats this year. Kansas State just has the talent. And like I said earlier, that chip on their shoulder after missing the tournament last year. I think Kansas is definitely on the rise. I think we're perhaps a year away from the Sunflower Showdown being a really, really significant series in the Big 12. But, of course, there's a chance for that this year with James Fitzgerald. I'm a big believer in both of these programs. Obviously, it's easy to tell, much like we harp on Jake for his Texas bias. You can tell which state I live closest to in the Big 12. I would love for both of these programs to be great. I think Kansas State has the edge right now, but really, really excited about the direction of both of these programs.
Yeah, I mean, this series matters this year. Many seasons it's been between who's going to finish last in the Big 12. This season, this series actually matters between these teams. And I think both these teams are on the rise in the Big 12, which is a good thing to see from both programs. Both programs have great coaching staffs. They're starting to get all these players in from the Midwest. It's going to be really cool to see both these teams continue to rise. I love that. Jake, does Texas have the dudes to return to Omaha? It's a simple question.
I think 100%. It is kind of Omaha. I wouldn't say Omaha or bust, but I mean, Texas goes to Omaha so much, it almost kind of feels like that. I mean, they have, the two greatest things that it takes to get to Omaha: pitching, timely hitting. Look for Jalen Flores to be a guy that they really kind of lean on. I mean, he was a very, very hot prospect and really kind of disappointed. So it almost kind of feels like his last hurrahs. David Pierce loves to recruit people behind. So look for him to kind of either, rise to the occasion and be a big piece in this Texas lineup, or, someone that Texas recruits behind him will step up. But yeah, I mean, it's Texas. They always have the dudes to go to Omaha.
That's fair. I think what it's going to come down to is the pitching, right? Can the pitching be enough to get this team there? And if Tanner Witt is healthy and has the stuff, he can get them there. He can do what he needs to do. TCU, love or hate. I had a lot of issues with TCU fans last year. They did not love my takes on TCU, and then TCU goes hot, and they get all the way to Omaha. I took back everything I said about TCU. I apologized for my actions. I don't think TCU is that team this year. I don't think that they are going to be the team that runs out there and competes like they did at the end of last season. I don't see TCU making it to Omaha. I see them as a nice piece in the Big 12, finishing in the top 4 somewhere, competing for the Big 12 championship, but not competing on a national level this year. As much as I love Anthony Silva, I don't believe that this team competes for a Big 12 or national championship this season in 2024. Jacob, I'll let you start here. Oklahoma or Oklahoma State? We have them ranked very close to each other now. I know you took Oklahoma State as your dark horse. Which team has the ability to possibly win this conference?
I mean, that one's tough because they kind of seem to both have the same problems. I think Oklahoma actually has a bigger chance just because they have so many pieces from that team that, went to the finals 2 years ago that just kind of took a step back. And they added Easton Carmichael, who, what we've seen in the past with some of these Oklahoma Sooners is that they take a step back in the sophomore year. But I think Anthony McKenzie is going to be a very big name that's going to be kind of the catalyst for this Oklahoma team. And I think Oklahoma has a chance to win Bedlam kind of one last time as well. I mean, that's the other thing. It's just I think baseball, I'll have to check the schedule, but baseball is the last Bedlam series, period. So it truly is the eternal bragging rights.
Yeah, this is gonna be it for them. I think you're right on there. I think Nicklaus and Spikerman have to step up for this Oklahoma ball club, and they need pitching. If they're such a good pitching team, where was the pitching last year? Noah, Oklahoma or Oklahoma State, either one of them have a chance of winning the Big 12 this year, and who?
Absolutely, and I think it's Oklahoma State. With a bat like Nolan Schubart, you can go as far as you want to. I think that they have some good pieces coming in. This is a team with a veteran coaching staff. Obviously, Oklahoma has one too, but I don't know. I was going to say Tulo for Texas. Completely different coaching staff, folks. But Coach Holliday has a good idea of what's going to take to win this conference. He's always had guys that can hit it out of the park. I'm a big believer in Oklahoma State. Generally, every year, it feels like the football team as well. They're always the same program. They're going to have these guys step up who may not flash in front of your eyes. Guys like Marcus Brown that we've seen in the past who just do things the right way. So I generally believe that Oklahoma State's going to be in this mix, even if they're having a kind of an inconsistent year.
I'm gonna go with Oklahoma State as well, just because I hate Oklahoma. I like to trash on Oklahoma every year. As much as I think that Oklahoma has the guys, I think Oklahoma State feels like a better culture to be able to have that chance of making that run at it this year. Noah, what incoming team is going to do the most damage in the Big 12 this year? Now, that can be taken a lot of ways. You can say that they're going to beat teams they shouldn't beat. You can say they're going to compete for a title. Which team do you think does the most damage to the Big 12 this year?
I think we're all in agreement on this one that it's going to be UCF. Jake might go on his Houston tangent, but I think UCF just has those pieces that we saw where they're able to beat a team like Clemson last year, and they're able to kind of hang around with some of the better teams in the AAC, but they just didn't quite have that secret sauce. I don't think that's going to translate to competing in the top half of the Big 12 this year, but I don't think any of the newcomers will. Of those four, I give me the edge to UCF.
Fair. I think that they are the team that probably is going to have the best chance of doing it. Houston probably is the most consistent team of the new ones coming in, but they're going to have the chance to do that. UCF's going to have the ability to beat anybody in the conference, like I said. Jake, where does Tech go? Where does Tech go from here?
I mean, this is probably one of the biggest years in Tech baseball. As you know, they're losing Texas, they're losing OU. They lost their best player in Mace Molina and a Friday night guy. I mean, if you're a Texas Tech and you don't go deep, how do you recruit anybody out there from this point? Like, it really is kind of a make or break year for them. And I'm not saying Tadlock's on the hot seat. I mean, he's earned the right to have the job security that he has, but he's going to have to start recruiting different players if this year doesn't go the right way for Texas Tech.
Yeah, I said it earlier in the show. I think that Texas Tech is on the edge of losing their blue bloodness in the college baseball landscape right now. And it's just because they have not competed at the highest level that they feel like they should be every single year, and they're just not there. I'd like to see them win road series. I think that's the big difference this year, Jake. Can they go out on the road and win road series? And that's what's really going to set their season apart. I believe that I believe Texas Tech can. No, you got something to add to this Tech trashing that I'm doing?
Well, I just wanted to quickly address the Tim Tadlock hot seat. Even if his seat is sizzling hot, even if it's the hottest seat in the country, which it's not, Tim Tadlock is signed to a lifelong contract.
That's why I said it's not a Tim Tadlock hot seat thing. He's just gonna have to start recruiting different players.
I'm just saying that I'm saying two things here. Number one, it's a lifelong contract. Who knows? Number two, would that be the first ever lifelong contract to result in a firing?
To be fired.
I know where you're going with this, and I don't like it.
Hey, I do believe that Texas Tech is going to have to be better this year than they have been in the past few years here, but we'll see what happens moving forward. Noah, last question for you. Can West Virginia be the difference maker in this conference?
Absolutely, they can. Like Jake said about 10 minutes ago, they tied for first to end that regular season in the Big 12, and then we did see them fall apart along that way, but we talk about the depth that they've brought on to help J.J. Weatherholt shine. This is a team that I think has 2021 Oklahoma potential with a floor of last year's West Virginia team. So I think they're going to be right in that mix. They aren't going to be surprising as many people anymore, so that'll definitely hurt them to a degree. But I'm a big fan of what West Virginia's been able to do really the last few years, and now J.J. is shining in front of our eyes. Which, how did we not mention JJ in the Big 12 Player of the Year talks?
I think because he was the low-hanging fruit, right? He hit 449 last year and 18. Like, he was the low-hanging fruit. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, somebody's going to pick him. Let's go somewhere else with this pick. I don't
think they usually do repeats either. It's very hard to win the award twice.
Yeah, it's very hard to win the award twice. I will say that one of our compatriots, AJ, who is not here with us today, AJ Sessions, he did pick JJ Weber. So that's why I was like, oh, I'm going to leave him off my list because I know that he was taking him. He did take him. He also had Anthony Silva up there, who we also did not take for the Big 12 championship. So there's two good guys there. Jake, did you have anything to add about this West Virginia team?
Yes, I'm going to steal a line that I've seen a lot on Texas A&M message boards from the football season. Close losses translate to tougher players. So look for West Virginia to kind of translate that and take those losses that they took and be a lot better because they lost those games.
I just threw up in my mouth listening to you talk right now. Listen, there's a lot to like about the Big 12 this year. I think that this is going to be a fun conference. I don't know if anybody comes out of this conference and makes it to Omaha this year. They have the ability to send 2 or 3 teams. They have the ability also to send 0 teams to Omaha. This is going to be a fun conference to watch. Noah, any last words, anything you want to add about Big 12 baseball this year?
I just really enjoy Big 12 baseball because it always feels like while it is a little bit top heavy, there are always these little flavors that you can have a little fun with throughout. Whereas there's some other conferences where it isn't that way. So I appreciate what the Big 12 brings. We see teams like Kansas State who always kind of floated around. Now they're in our top 3. So it's going to be the question of who can kind of take advantage of the kind of like staggering of who's losing now. Okay, now we benefited from that. It's a very, very almost even conference from really top to bottom, which I enjoy.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of adversity in this conference. I think there's a lot of teams that are going to compete every single week. Road series are not going to be give-me's except for unless you're at Baylor. But, yeah, I think that even the games that you're going to see the BYUs who are down at the bottom of this conference, right, it's going to be fun at least watching them play there because that stadium is so awesome. So we're all excited about that. Jake, any last thoughts here on this Big 12 conference?
I'm excited to see some of these Twitter battles. I know Texas baseball fans are really intense, and I think a lot of these newcomers don't understand how intense some of these guys get for baseball. So I'm excited to see kind of how UCF, BYU, Twitter, and all the transitive losses that we kind of talk ourselves into as well. Because, I mean, someone in the Big 12 is going to have a horrible loss, and I just love it when the fan bases kind of go at it like that. So that's what I'm really excited to see out of the Big 12 is just the Twitter wars.
I'm just happy to be back in the good graces of TCU fans. I think it's because I donated to the Special Olympics last year. I am also happy to see me continue my hate with Oklahoma fans. So bring it on, Oklahoma fans. You are trash. You're not going to be good again this year, and you didn't deserve to be in the tournament last year. So thanks again for joining us here, our Big 12 preview show. Once again, we have sponsor Home Field apparel. If you go use code CBC15, you get 15% off your very first order with them. They have lots of good apparel. Go on there, use their stuff, shout us out, come visit us on the Weekend Rotation. Join us in about an hour. We're going to be doing our very first CBC Weekend Rotation trivia show. Pretty excited about that one there. Got these boys joining me here, Noah and Jake, and I'm also going to be bringing in Pat Beaverman, who runs the Beaverman podcast out here on the West Coast. So we're going to have a little bit of flair from everywhere. For all of us here at College Baseball Central, thanks for joining us Big 12 preview. We'll see you again next week. Which one we got next week?
ACC, I believe.
I know it. I was just
we're going to get Monty in here.
Let's go, ACC. All right, thanks again, guys.